Hello, I'm a teacher and a way shower. I've always wondered all my life, why am I here? What's the purpose of all of this? When I was quite young, 10 or 11 years old, I got gifted with a book by an eccentric neighbor, and the book was actually called Why We Are Here. Eureka! I finally had the answers right in my fingertips in this book, and I was going to find that out. Well, sadly, the book was about entities that were living on the inside of the earth, and they were from outer space, and so on. It was probably a channeled concoction. I've never seen the book again, but how much fun to think that I had all the answers at that young age. I continued to ask that question. What is my purpose in life? Why am I here? Why am I with the people that I am with? The reality is we choose our lives. And one of the questions that I always had as an early teen, I used to doodle the name Sam. I didn't know anyone by that name. There were no relatives by that name, no schoolmates, nothing. But I doodled the name Sam. What's up with that? So the other thing was I was terrified of people who were missing their front teeth. Well, I had no reason to have fear of people like that. And it was an unstated, unknown fear. I would cross the street to avoid them. And this continued on until I was in my early 30s. And at that time, I had an opportunity to experience a past life regression. I don't know, past lives, reincarnation? The new fathers of Christianity, the early fathers of Christianity, wrote out reincarnation from the Bible at the Edict of Nantes in 395 AD, somewhere around that time frame. Constantine was a big player in that regard. So there's a little bit of history on why it's not existing anywhere, but most religions speak of life after life, a wheel within a wheel. So the past life regression I experienced when I was 30 cleared up some questions that I had. First off, why did I fear people with no front teeth? Secondly, why was the name Sam always something I doodled? And also, why was I fascinated with two places? One being the deep south of the United States and the other Arizona. Well, I got the answers in the past life regression. And it was really quite simple. I was a young girl during the time of the Civil War, hiding up the chimney, for God's sakes, from the soldiers. I was captured, and I was afraid, and of course quite young. And we fast forwarded along in that lifetime to sometime probably about 15 years later. And now I was living in Arizona, way out, not close to anything, very dry climate, with my husband. His name was Sam. He had no front teeth. The child that we had, whose name was Mark, was not his child. Sam had taken me in. And while he provided for me, he was not an overly kind man, and I did fear him. So there was my aversion to people who were missing their front teeth. Up until that time, I would cross the street to avoid any contact with someone who was missing those teeth. And I also was quite fascinated with the Deep South. I didn't understand how fascinated until about 20 years after that, when I got to go and visit New Orleans. It was so home for me, as was another 3 or 4 years later when I had the chance to go and experience Arizona and the desert. So the past life regression for me explained a great deal of why I had the fears and some of the knowledge that I had. And knowledge is free. You bring your own container. So I actually do past life regressions. Just really, I call it for entertainment because I'm not a trained hypnotherapist and I don't use hypnosis. I take you into a light meditative state and I ask you questions, but they're not leading questions. So look down at your feet. What kind of footwear are you wearing? What are you standing on? And you come up with the answers. One of the things I really enjoy about doing past life regressions is the absolute incredulity of the voices when I say, when you look at your feet, and they give me an answer that they were not expecting. I always ask, what was your purpose in that lifetime? What were you there to learn? And I take you through a death so that you'll no longer fear death, because all time is now. We do live in a big concurrency. If you want to experience a regression, contact me, info@maggiedavidson.com, or through my website, www.maggie, and that's MAGGY, Davidson, DAVIDSON.com. Thanks.